Live from the Congress Center in London, England, it's theCUBE at MIT and the Digital Economy, the second machine age. Brought to you by headline sponsor MIT.
Welcome back to London, everybody. This is Dave Vellante with Stu Miniman, and this is theCUBE, and we're here covering MIT's initiative on the digital economy. Roberto Rigobon is here. Roberto, welcome to theCUBE, great to see you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell us about the Billion Prices Project. What is that all about?
So several years ago, I would say actually 9 years ago, a student of mine, Alberto Cavallo, decided that he wanted to try to compute alternative measures of inflation rate. And he was motivated because in Argentina, he's from Argentina, he was motivated because in Argentina they intervened the statistical office and they were lying about the inflation rate. So he wanted to construct the truthful inflation rate, in fact. So he started with food and things like that, and then I realized the tremendous potential of just taking that to all the sectors, not only food, and we started working together, and right now we download from more than 70 countries worldwide. We download on almost every sector information from the web on service prices and stores as well. I mean, stores are the easy ones. Getting the price of a taxi in London is a little bit harder. And what we do is we have to make like reservations every day from the airport to the hotel, and they tell you then the price of taxis. So you have to be kind of creative about how to get the data, but then you have to collect everything. Yeah.
So is a robot doing that, or you actually?
Yeah. No. A person cannot do that because you have far too many cities in the world to actually do that with a person. No, so it's actually a robot.
Make sure you cancel those reservations, right?
Yeah, we do it. Actually, we ask for a quote, not a reservation.
Yes,
it's a quote.
Okay, good.
So when you ask for the quote, it is perfectly fine.
So you're basically taking many data points. It's not a sampling of the data points as we talked about offline. Big data. We talk about Hadoop. Sampling is dead, and you've gone right to the heart of it. So what does the data show?
So I mean, they're very surprising in some countries. For example, the inflation rate that we compute online is very similar to the one that is computed by the statistical office.
Like which countries do a good job?
I would say that all developed nations do a very good job. So the numbers are not identical, and the numbers will never be identical month by month.
Sure, right.
And the reason is that the online business just moves faster than the offline business. No, so imagine in Italy, if you want to increase the price of pasta, well, you increase first to the online users because they're probably richer, they don't care about the price, they have no memory. But you will not increase the price of pasta in the streets and expecting not to be burned the store, no? So imagine increasing the price of bread in France, will be there. So they don't increase the price of bread, they just make the bread smaller, and that's my version of how the croissant was invented, no? Yeah. It used to be this size, just put it outside. So indeed, they move at different periods, but when you look at a year on year, for example, in the United States, I get a little bit more inflation than the BLS, and I would say that this is on the 0.02, 0.03%, so it's nothing, the numbers are very small. In Japan, I always get a little bit less, and that would be about 10 basis points less than the official data, but that's the order of discrepancy. Now, when you go to emerging markets, for example, in Brazil, our inflation rate is 2% bigger than the official one. So their official one will be, let's say, 6.5 or 7. The one that we will compute will be at least 2% more than that on average. And it's not, I mean, it's not because we have price controls or not. We collect the prices from the items that have price controls. I just collect way more items. What happens in the statistical office is that they put too much weight on the products that have controlled prices. So by construction, you have a lot of items that the prices are flat, no? And then Argentina, our inflation rate will be 3 times the official one, not 3%. So if they say 8, we will get 24.
Okay, so in the former example, the developed nations, it's more of a timing issue, maybe. But in the less developed nations, you're saying that it's essentially the government's hiding the ball, is that right?
Well, in some senses, statistical capacity is how much can you do. I mean, the poorer the country, the less resources the statistical office has.
So it's a flawed measurement system.
It's a flawed measurement system because of resources, some of them. In other countries, it's just manipulation. So So in the countries, yeah. If your country's name Argentina, Russia, Venezuela, they are just manipulating the data.
Yeah.
so the other ones might be.
So they don't like you very much, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, they don't.
What's been the reaction to your project in the data?
Oh, well, so what is interesting is, for example, in developed nations, like a country like Australia, where they produce the inflation rate only once every quarter, actually our data has been very well received by the central bank, by the statistical office, by everybody, in the sense that we are actually complementing. And for example, Australia is one of our earliest countries. We have this data from 2008, and it's just remarkably close to the statistical office. So in that sense, they use it very actively as a measurement of daily inflation rate. So in developed nations has been very well received. In countries like Brazil, it's well received. They just disregard it and say that's the inflation rate online. I said, yeah, yours is the inflation rate offline. It's not clear which one is better.
Well, the academics in Brazil must appreciate.
Yeah. So that is very well received. So, but it's interesting. Central banks like the Chilean central bank. It really appreciates the data because it gives them a very early signal. So what happens is that when there's going to be inflation, you see that in the online prices about 2 or 3 months before. Really? You see it on the, yes, because there's a very big delay. So as a central banker, when I can see this very fast shift in the online inflation rate, and I can infer from that what is going to happen in the economy, is actually very valuable.
So central banks are using your data.
Yes, and I imagine some private sector and financial system also uses the data because of the same reason.
Yeah, I was curious, do you know, are there businesses or traders that are watching what you're doing and being able to take advantage of those opportunities?
I hope they are. In some sense, what we do is we distribute this, a big part of our research is, about 3 years ago, we did a spin-off. This was incredibly expensive to do with resources from MIT, which, by the way, this was created entirely with resources from MIT. So we did a spin-off, and now we actually distribute this through a bank in State Street Bank, and we distribute the indexes. So I really hope that somebody's using it. Yeah.
So how do you distribute? You have an API into the data set?
No. So actually, because I'm not very good at selling, we just have an agreement where they distribute and they are the ones that sell. I just give the index to them, and then they are the ones that distribute. They have a research webpage, and what we do is what is publicly available is the inflation rate of Argentina and the US. That is entirely publicly available, so you can go to Alberto's or my webpage and you can see the inflation rate of these two countries. But except for those two, the rest are distributed through the State Street.
For pay, for a fee.
And I think it's for fee. Yeah,
but then State Street is funding essentially.
State Street is actually funding a big part of what we do. Yes, a very big part. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, can you speak to? We were talking a little bit before off camera, just the growth of this and how much resources. I mean, you said it was you named it $1 billion prices before it was $1 billion, and now it's over $1 billion prices a day.
Yeah. So indeed, when we started, my goal was to actually try to get 1 billion prices in a quarter. And remember, I'm collecting every day, so this is totally cheating, no? And the reason is, I know it sounds stupid, but collecting 1 million prices is still very hard. So I wanted 1 billion in a quarter, and today we have the ability to download way more than 1 billion in a day. So I mean, we don't because we don't want to. I mean, there's certain items that you don't need to download all the items, like books, for example. I mean, if you go to Amazon.com, for example, they will have about 17 different million books sold on that particular day. So now, how many of them you really need to compute the inflation rate of books? Probably 500. I mean, you need a very small sample of books, which are the hot books. Everything else is sold once a month or once a week, so you don't need the prices. So even though we have the ability to download, now what we do is we restrict ourselves. We know that we don't need all 17 million to compute the inflation rate of books, so we don't need to go all that way. So in this process, we have learned that you don't always need all the data. Now, in some sectors, you need electronics. Electronics, you need all the data. Otherwise, you will make humongous mistakes. Because I need the new iPhone to be in the data, and the old iPhone to be in the data to be able to compute an index. So.
Oh, we're getting the high sign, but we have to talk about 1,000 Big Macs before we go.
Yes, our new index, what we have done is borrowing from the economist's idea of the Big Mac, the beautiful idea is that you get the exact same item to compare across nations. And we said, well, in our data, we actually have a lot of items that are identical worldwide. I mean, I have Zara's data, so I have the same t-shirt, and H&M the same t-shirt, Nike the same shoes. And so what we did was to create this index that compares identical items worldwide, and it's thousands of them, and I call it the 1,000 Big Macs project because it's, it's in that spirit. And the beauty is that this is more or less tells me how expensive the tradable products are in a particular country. And when you think about it, all the tradable products are online. Food is online, electronics are online, clothing online, cosmetics are online. I mean, everything except cars, you can find it online. And therefore what we can do is we have a massive set of the basket and we compare. So we detect what I call macroeconomic imbalances. So when Brazil becomes more expensive on everything, gasoline, food, electronics, when it's too expensive, something has to happen to the exchange rate. And in fact, we are actually finding in our research that 9 months down the road, when we find these signals, 9 months down the road, they tend to depreciate. And it's
they take action. Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
so for example, right now in England, there's a lot of questions about what is going to happen to the pound-dollar rate. There's a lot of political volatility.
Yeah, what's happening with the sterling?
Well, actually, I think in the sterling, for example, in our data, looks that it's right about the equilibrium, that there's no trend. So there's going to be a lot of noise due to politics, but I don't think that the trend will drive in too far from the 150. And so it is, so in our data, it roots exactly where it should be. In other words, and England versus the US, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of items. Is that okay? It's reaching a big number. When I look at all of them and I ask who is too expensive and who is too cheap, the proportion is very small between England. Actually, the data is from yesterday.
Okay, so it's balanced. Yesterday. You would predict stability.
Well, I mean, volatility due to politics, but there's no trend in that sense. So that is mostly noise. So,
yeah, you can normalize that line over time.
Exactly, you can normalize, exactly, that's the way we did it. So it's kind of very interesting. And anyway, I'm very excited about this. And this is the first time we're going to present that research here in this
we're
conference.
really excited to hear this, your conversation this afternoon. We'll be broadcasting it live. So Roberto, thanks very much for coming on theCUBE.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on the research and appreciate you sharing.
Oh no, thank you guys for having me.
All right, keep it right there, everybody. We'll be back with our next guest right after this. We're live from London. This is MIT IDE. This is theCUBE. We'll be right back.